In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to do the floating portrait edit for the Choose Your Own Adventure project. The first thing you'll need are the pictures that you photographed. There's a minimum of 2 because you need a background where you don't have the person or the object that they're standing on in the picture. And then you also need a picture of the person standing on something in the picture. So here's a picture that I took myself. I used a tripod. I'm standing on top of this ladder here. And you can see that I dragged them in on top of each other. I'll need to unlock the bottom layer just so that it doesn't get in the way if I want to do any editing. And then this layer here is a smart object, you can see because of the box there. I'll need to raster size that layer in order to do some layer masking and different editing. Okay, first step of the process is to make sure that I have my background layer beneath, so that's the layer that I don't have anything on. Alright, then this top layer I want to create a layer mask. Then I'm going to zoom in just on the area that I want to delete using the layer mask. Photoshop is taking a little while to think here. There we go. Alright. Switch to the brush. For this one it makes sense to use kind of a mid-level hardness because I'm going to be getting in really close and trying to be very detailed around my shoe to make sure that the whole ladder disappears. So I'm going to have a hardness right around there. Undo that. Alright, so a smaller brush painting black on the layer mask is going to make this area disappear. So starting large and then zooming in and using a smaller brush to get the job done. Remember, a fast way to move around in the picture is to press spacebar as you're clicking and then dragging. And then just keep getting a smaller and smaller brush to get more and more detailed. If it helps to zoom in, that's a great idea. Control plus, and then just change your brush size to match. If you make a mistake, you can always switch from black to white as your paint, and you'll be painting back in areas. Alright, so here we are. I've got a version of myself with the object that I was standing on gone. Now, if you wanted to make this a really more successful portrait, depending on the lighting that you have, you may consider creating a shadow of yourself. So in this picture, since I'm in the shade, it probably wouldn't show up quite as much. What I'm going to do is just apply the layer mask that I created. If I'm totally fine with how it turned out, and then I'm going to be selecting myself here. So do a quick select here, myself. Alright, as long as I roughly get most of myself here. If you've got a really hard light, like straight sunlight, you're going to have really sharp edges to your shadow, so you'd want to be really exact with your selection. Next, what I'm going to do is create a new layer down here, drag it below this layer, and then I'm going to be creating a shadow. I'm going to fill my selection with black. Alright, and then I'm going to deselect by going up to select, deselect. You can see that I have a version of myself here that's just black. Now this layer, I'd actually probably want to do some more layer masking before I'd be done with that, just so that I can have an area where I can see the shadow that's going to be placed down. So I'm just going to erase a large section down here, because that's where my shadow is going to go. Alright. So what I'll do then is just use the transform tool, Control T. Okay, so I'm placing it where I think that there would be a shadow. Again, since it's in the shadowy area of the building, the building's casting a shadow over this whole area, it's not really going to show quite as much of a shadow. Then I'll just be working with a filter to make it a little bit blurred, so I'm going to use Gaussian blur. And you can see how it's really blurring out the shadow depending on what pixel count I'd like. With soft light, you're going to have more of a blurred shadow. So maybe I'll just go kind of middle of the road here. Then I'll just work with opacity to make the shadow a little less exaggerated. And that's that. So I've got a shadow beneath me, so it looks like I'm actually floating there in the air, creating a shadow. You know, depending on where the light would be coming from, I'd need to move the shadow and perhaps use some of the other transform tools like perspective or warp or distort to make it look like the shadow would actually match where I was. Alright, that is the gist of it. Then you just save it as a JPEG and upload it on Blackboard.